Welcome to another episode of AnimeCons TV. My name is Doug Wilder. We're approaching the end of summer here in the Northern Hemisphere, so you know what that means. It's time for me to once again do an Otakon con report. This year was Otakon's 25th convention, and it's still going strong. It was the last weekend of July, and it was once again at the Walter Washington Convention Center in Washington, D.C. This was now the third year that it's been in D.C., so it's really starting to feel like the con has moved in. 2 years ago when it started at the new convention, it felt a little weird. People, were just kind of learning the lay of the land. Not as many people showed up. Last year, people really started to come back saying, yeah, this location's doing well. And now it really feels like this is the con's new home. People have really moved in and gotten used to it. So that was good to see. I almost always have a lot of good things to say about Otakon. It's the con I've been going to the longest. This year I could actually say now I've been going to the convention for over half my life, which kind of boggles my mind and is really neat for me personally. But this year I felt like I covered a lot more. So I'm going to be bouncing around a lot in topics during this con report. Don't be surprised if you see me kind of looking at my notes as I record this, but let's just dive in. First up, panels. As many of you know, I'm a big fan of checking out various panels at conventions. I present some on my own, things like that. But I definitely saw a lot of neat ones this year at Otakon. The first one I did was Russians in Anime, which was a really cool mix of history and geography about Russia and Japan's relationship. It talked about kind of the stereotypes within, about Russians in anime, but also mentioned things in history for Japan about their relationship with Russia that people might not know if you don't live in Japan. Like, might not know that this is part of like a reference to a conflict that they had and things like that. So it was a really informative and it was a lot of neat stuff. I went to the G-Kids industry panel, and they're, licensor that's kind of getting bigger and bigger. What was neat to them there was seeing not only them talk about what they're releasing on home video, like a lot of these companies are doing, but also why they're trying to get more stuff as theatrical releases, even if they're just kind of limited screenings, and what they want to do and how they want to grow that even more and get more kind of anime on the big screen in America. So that was neat to see. And I'm going to be curious to see how they keep doing that down the road. And of course, that was both talking about Ghibli Fest, things like that, but new things they've got in the works, like Promare going to be coming out there. So that's exciting to me. Ed Chavez, who works as part of the up-and-coming manga licensing company Denpa, did a panel about the process of licensing and releasing a Japanese manga in America. And I've seen Ed talk about this kind of unstructured before. When he worked for another company, he just kind of did this information shooting from the hip. This was now a much more structured version of that talk. He actually had like a real slide deck, not just kind of talking about it off the hip, like I said. And it was really neat to see it done in this really well formatted way, and it was a lot of good information. And it's something that I want to see more. I continue to say I want to see more people in the industry do this, is talk about kind of the industry aspect. I mean, yeah, we like license announcements, we like things like that, but pulling back the curtain a little bit, talking about behind the scenes, talking about what all goes into, bringing anime to fans either on the Japanese or the American industry side. It's something I think there's a lot of material there that can just be tapped, so I'd love to see more people work with that. I did another panel went to another panel called Otaku at the Library of Congress, because the Library of Congress is, of course, right in Washington, D.C. And these were people who work at the Library of Congress, so they know their stuff, but they were also very clearly geeks themselves. They were really funny. Like, it was a really engaging panel. They were really funny. They gave a lot of good information, and they kept it really relevant. This was probably one of the best panels I've seen in a long time for something I knew nothing really about. Like, I know what the Library of Congress is, but I didn't never thought about, like, what's it like being, a geek and working in the Library of Congress and some of the work that you get to do and things like that. I know there was a kind of an Anime for All event or something for at the Library of Congress, but it was like Thursday and part of Friday at the convention, and it was way off site, so I didn't get to go to that. That was one thing I kind of missed. And part of me was, like the Thursday's hard because everyone's still arriving, and Friday, it was because it was further off site, there was no good way to do it. I don't know if maybe there should have been a shuttle service to get people there or something, but it was because of the distance and other things that I wanted to see, I just didn't get to it. That said, again, I want to go back to the actual Otaku at the Library of Congress panel. Fantastic panel. Just really, really fun. And it was a fun panel to kind of start the day. And if this panel comes back again at Otakon, I would definitely say check this one out. Even if it's early in the morning, do it. You'll learn a lot and you'll laugh a lot. And these presenters were just phenomenal. Another panel that I went to was called Mecha and Modern Myth. I'm blanking on the presenter's name now, forgive me. But it was really interesting because he just kind of ran it like a TED Talk, where he just kept moving, going through all his points bit by bit by bit. It was very much a structured lecture. And I think he took about, 3/4 of the block of time and then had it open for questions at the end. But it was a really cool, solidly well-timed presentation. As someone who's a big fan of mecha anime, I really enjoyed it because even though I know some of these tropes that he's talking about, I know these anime series that he's talking about, things like that, I never saw it from some of these angles that he brought up. So it was really good as a mecha fan, and I think even if you aren't a diehard mecha fan, you'd still get a lot out of this. So it was a really well done one. The IOEA did 2 panels, and I went to both of them. I only caught part of one, which was about going to a comic market. And it was interesting to just see kind of what it's about and kind of how the organization formed and why it's so focused on fan works. It's not really about super pro level stuff like that. And, a lot of people just, as Americans, we hear about Comic Kit, but we don't know the ins and outs. And so hearing them talk a little bit more about what it's like and some of what goes into it is really neat. Their other one about fan events, I went in expecting them to talk about events they were going to be putting on, and they did talk a little bit about the Otaku World Summit that they'll be doing a little bit before the 2020 Olympics in Ikebukuro. But it was neat to see them just talking about kind of how they work with different events all across the world and how there's very different styles of events. They talk about how Comic Kid is much more, kind of creator focused, whereas something like, say, Otakon is much more fan focused, much more on that. And it's not saying one's better than the other or anything like that, but that just there's a wide variety in how, even though they are all very different, they're still very connected, because they all work together and have this network together. Of course, the last panel I went to was kind of my now traditional Otakon Sunday panel, which was the Discotheque media panel. It's the other industry panel I went to. And it's been really amazing to see how this company has grown for their panels. Their first one was very small, only kind of a handful knew the company, and now they're filling a room. They only had a handful of announcements, and this one they just kept the announcement train going. They are now actually working on dubs for some of their releases, so they actually brought out some of the dub cast and ADR staff for their release of Kenmono Friends, which is going to be a very big hit for them, I suspect. And they did even then get a little bit more behind the scenes. They talked about some of the other stuff that they've been working on. They announced Space Adventure Cobra movie on 4K, Ultra 4K, which is going to be amazing. And they talked about kind of the work they had to go into to get that, and how people's computers has to get upgraded and things like that to make these releases happen in the best possible thing. So again, like I've said about other panels, it's neat to see this more behind the scenes look while still promoting the brand and everything like that. The one thing I would say is it felt like this panel ran a little too tight. Like they were pretty much right up to the end. No time for Q&A at the end. Kept it moving. And on one hand, it felt a little rushed. On the other hand, as I thought about it, I don't know where they could cut anything. Like, they kept so much... All the info they brought in was really nice and relevant, and they kept it moving. So, I don't know. Do I want to say they need to go longer or need to go shorter? It's a tough call. So, again, it was a very dense panel, but still good. You had to be there kind of right from the beginning, right to the end, to catch everything. And again, just kept moving. Moving on to other programming, I checked out their game room this year, and it felt like a typical game room. I mean, there's not a whole heck of a lot to report there. One thing I will say is that I finally, after years of seeing them at conventions, I finally got to try the Gundam Pods game, which is something I've been wanting to do for, feels like forever. And the company that I think kind of moves them to different cons only has 4 of these, and they take a little time, so there's almost always a line. This year, I actually said, you know what? I'm going to do it. I'm going to check this out. I'll go to the game room first thing Sunday morning, like as soon as they open, and make a beeline for the Gundam Pods, and I'll get to try it out. I was number 5 in line. So I still had to wait, but only, maybe 10 minutes at most. And it was worth it. I wasn't in the first wave, but it was worth it for 10 minutes. When the line's longer, I'm not sure it's really worth it because I want to check out other stuff at the convention. It's not a priority. So I'd say if they're going to be coming to another convention, make sure you get to the video game room or wherever it is early and get in line early and then go do other stuff. Unless you have like a huge chunk of time to kill, don't waste your time waiting in line for the Gundam Pods. But again, they were still fun. One other thing I saw in the game room was they had demos of how to play Mahjong, which was cool to see. And this is something I wish we could see in more game rooms at it. Like just learning how to play kind of, some of these Japanese games and things like that. Not necessarily a panel, but something like you can sit down and actually play and have someone who knows the game teach you a little bit more and engage you and stuff like that. I mean, how many people remember how big how to play Koi Koi panels were after Summer Wars was a big hit? That doesn't count. Those kind of came and went, and I'd like to see them kind of bring back. So maybe just free idea for conventions, do a block of how to play traditional Japanese games and stuff like that, and go through a bunch of them. Like say, okay, at 10 o'clock, we're going to do how to play this Japanese game, this game, and stuff like that. And find ones that are in anime, because I think you get a lot of people interested in the more traditional games. Not necessarily, like, hey, how to play Yu-Gi-Oh!, not that, but more of the traditional stuff. I think there's an audience there, and if it's something that you promote, you're going to have a lot of success. Speaking of the game room, one thing they had in both the game room and the dealer's room was a booth for Wild Bill's Soda, which, for those of you who haven't seen this before, I've seen this company at a bunch of different cons all up and down the East Coast, and usually you buy like a tin mug from them. Sometimes it's branded with convention, sometimes it's just their logo. I got a nice one that was kind of rainbow metallic for the 25th anniversary of 25th Otakon. And you bring your mug up to their soda taps, and you can usually get unlimited refills of their types of soda. And they used to be, like at most cons that I saw, you'd buy the mug for the day, you'd have unlimited refills for that day, and if you went back the next day, it was like, it's like $5 more to get unlimited soda for that day too. What they did this time, and they had 2 stations, one in the dealer's room, one in the video game room, it was one price for the mug, and it was good for the entire weekend. So for the smaller mug, I paid about $30, which was, it seemed like a good steep price, but then when I found out that it was unlimited refills the entire weekend, it paid for itself pretty quickly. I shared it with a friend, so for basically $15 for each of us, we were getting unlimited soda. And okay, yes, soda's not going to be the most healthy thing for the entire convention, and you shouldn't replace having actual water and having an actual meal, but it was nice to have that convenience of, I don't have to worry about it, I've paid for it, just get a little more, keep going, and things like that. So you're paying for the convenience, but when you look at it as unlimited refills the entire weekend and just have the peace of mind of not having to budget for that, it was really worthwhile. So I kind of hope this comes back and they do it again next year, and same model, because I would definitely do that again. But as I said, the Wild Bill soda was in the game room. They were also in the dealer's room. I didn't spend too much in the dealer's room this year, but there was some good variety, like a lot of different vendors and things like that. We're seeing more figures out. I mentioned Denpa's publishing panel. They actually had a small booth with a couple things for sales as they're starting to announce more licenses and stuff like that. One thing they were giving away was Japanese-style book covers for the manga. So if you've ever been to Japan or you see like that, this in anime or stuff like that, a lot of people get book covers even for manga that they buy, so you can't see what they're reading while like you're on the subway or on the train or something like that. And I thought this was a really neat idea because it was something that had in it, you could protect your book, and you got something a little more Japanese with it. And they had art usually wrote by the artists of some of the titles they were selling. So it was a neat little bonus thing, so I hope it continues, or they just, promote it a little bit more, because it was a really unique idea and it was something different. One of the things that was weird to me was Bluefin Brands did not have a booth at Otakon this year. I bought a big model kit from them last year, and they didn't have a booth at Otakon. And it was especially weird because this was after the weekend after San Diego Comic-Con, where they were promoting all sorts of stuff for the 40th anniversary of Mobile Suit Gundam. They had a ton of stuff, year-specific stuff for the 40th anniversary, and it was really neat to see. And it seems so weird. Like, you'd think they would have packed up the leftovers, maybe replenished some of the stock, and just sent it from San Diego straight to DC for the next con, and they just didn't do it. And I was, for lack of a better word, disappointing. I mean, yeah, I saved money because I didn't go buy more stuff from them, but I was really kind of surprised. So I hope they come back to Otakon next year. I mean, obviously, they won't be the 40th anniversary of Gundam then, but their booth always has a lot of stuff, and they always seem to be doing good business, so I was very surprised. Where I did spend a little bit more money was at the Artist Alley. Once again, they've had some good variety. I think a lot of Artist Alleys at conventions are now becoming just kind of, everyone's just selling prints of their stuff. Digital prints everywhere. And this one felt like people are actually doing a more wider variety of things. There's more things out there. Prints are still available, with plenty of other like handmade crafts and stuff. There's two things I'll bring up that I really liked seeing. The first was there was one booth that had jewelry made from reptile sheds, so like say a snake sheds its skin and stuff like that. They made some like bracelets or necklaces out of that. And it's also a company that works with an animal rescue, so they had a lot of neat stuff. It's all humanely made because it's just the shed skin. It's not actually harming the animal. These prices were really good, variety of colors. And I thought one of the neatest things about this was they actually said like where everything came from. So you'd pick up a piece of, like, I bought a pendant for my girlfriend, and on the back it just says like, oh, this came from, say, Billy the Corn Snake, and things like that. So you actually gave it a little more identity like that, and it was a unique thing. So something we hadn't seen at conventions before. So I hope this artist did really well. I hope they come back. Like, I'll definitely keep an eye out for them at Otakon. I have their Etsy shop, so I'm definitely going to be probably spending some more money for people I know that like reptiles, like supporting animal rescue, and like cool jewelry. So I think that there'll be one I'll be visiting again. So again, I hope they did well. There was another artist there called Ridith Mochi, who I've been following for a while now, and this was his first time at an East Coast convention, so I was super excited that I saw him booth. And he had some of his typical digital prints and some t-shirts of designs he's done, but he had a folio, just kind of a notebook of like kind of black construction paper. I'm probably saying the way wrong artistic term, but he did all these designs for Inktober. So it was black paper with white and gold ink, and these are all unique designs that he did just on his own, one of a kind. So I got a really cool G Gundam, Devil Gundam Colony inspired design by him, And it was a little more up there in price compared to some of the other stuff he was offering. But at the same time, I looked at this as like, I love this artist. It's unique. It's one of a kind. No one else is going to have this. This is going to be only mine. And like, I think I'd have a picture of it, and this picture just does not do it justice. It was really neat to see, and he was super friendly. So I hope he gets to more East Coast cons, because I'd love to see him continue to succeed and make more cool Gundam stuff. But again, just so you had to look about it, but I'd say Artist Alley was a good way to like really look around, and if you had time to really browse this year, you could find a lot of neat stuff. It was a really good Artist Alley this year. And last but definitely not least, one thing I got to do this year was I got the incredible chance to interview Toro Faria, who's just an amazing voice actor with quite a resume. He's done a bunch of stuff. We'll be sharing that full interview in a future episode of AnimeCons TV, but it was incredible. He was a super friendly guy, and I want to just take a moment here to just give a huge thank you to the Otakon press and guest relations staff for giving me the facilitating this opportunity. It really meant a lot to me. I remember getting ready to do this interview, and my heart was just jumping out of my chest, and thankfully I didn't, faint as I got a chance to meet him and things like that, but it really meant a lot to me, and it was a really cool moment like that. So again, I want to give a big thank you to the Otakon staff for giving me that opportunity. It really means the world to me as someone who's loved Gundam for longer than I've been going to Otakon, which is now over 19 years. So there we go. And that's my report on Otakon 2019. I still feel like I ran out of time to do everything I wanted, and felt like everybody I talked to was doing multiple things. So we all checked out things that were going on at the same time, but we all still had a great time. So again, I had a blast. If maybe you went this year, or maybe you've been to another anime convention recently, you should let us know. You can always get in touch with us. You can email us at podcast@animecons.tv. You can even leave us a voicemail at 762-ADEQUATE, which is 762-233-7828. Don't forget to like us and subscribe on iTunes and YouTube. And also, don't forget to share us with your friend. Word of mouth is one of the best ways that we can get people to check out our show. Once again, I'm Doug Wilder, and we'll see you guys again soon.